upon a system in this country that assures that a significant number of God's children will not succeed. Professor Alexander will tell you about that. But where she helped me as I take my seat was putting what I have been struggling with for the last 2 decades into some historical perspective. What she says to us is that this nation was founded on slavery. A civil war occurred to end that, followed by Jim Crow, which we have fought so hard in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s to end that. And now there is a new Jim Crow. And that Jim Crow comes about through a criminal justice system and policies of our nation and our state and of our city. Is one of the leading exemplars of putting our children in the line of incarceration. And by doing so, even if they do their time, whether it was good time or bad time, whether they were guilty or not guilty, every particular avenue for them is closed. Can't get a job, got a record. Can't get educational benefits, that's the record. Can't live in public housing with your family, because she's got a record. Every avenue is closed. That is why this book is so important, because it challenges us to work anew for a society that does not put a whole group of people in a caste. In their communities to die. Listen to her, please, and be more to respond. Thank you very much.
So yesterday I sat down to write, and I looked at the program and I said, I called Nancy Michaels, our program coordinator at Mansfield Institute, and I said, wait a second, I have to talk after Reverend Morris. So let me just say what he said, and then I just want to tell you some logistics and give a few thanks to folks that made today possible. My name is Dalmage, I'm the director of the Mansfield Institute for Social Justice and Transformation. My voice is obviously on the lookout, so I'm going to make this very brief. I would like to say thank you to some people at Roosevelt, starting with Nancy Michaels, our program coordinator. Nancy works tirelessly. She is so committed to the work of the Mansfield Institute and disrupting the cradle to prison pipeline that exists in this country. An amazing advisory board. The Mansfield Institute has created a advisory board of faculty and staff from across the university, and if you all could just stand up and be recognized for the work that you're doing at the university, we appreciate it. Of course, thanks to Lynn Weiner, my dean, Jim Gondry, provost, and you've met Chuck Middleton, our president, 3 wonderfully supported administrators at this university. Reverend Morris mentioned the High Hopes campaign. Thanks to Rick Udick, our head librarian, who made this space there. We'd also like to recognize our community partners, the people that are actually in the communities doing the work day in and day out to give our kids something other than a pipeline to prison, instead give them a pipeline to hope. So I'd like to recognize Enlace, Chicago Reporter, TASK, Claim, Build, Community Renewal Society, Project MIA, Catalyst Chicago, the Better Boys Foundation, the Black Star Project, and the Career Advancement Network. Thank you to all of you. And without further ado, I would like to introduce to you now Michelle Alexander. Her biography is in the program, and again, as President Middleton asked, if you are sitting here, somebody that doesn't have a program, please share with them. But I will say that when I first heard about her book was actually when the Black Star Project had invited Michelle Alexander to town to give a talk. And then immediately, upon reading this book, we decided it fit with what we were trying to do here and the work that's happening already in Chicago. And so we invited Michelle Alexander, and we made it a one book, one university. Faculty have been using it in their courses. We have been having book discussions across the university. And then one night, I couldn't fall asleep, and so I had the DVR going, and Chicago Tonight was on, and I saw Board President Preckwinkle in an interview with Carol Marie saying she had lunch that day with Ron Emanuel, our incoming mayor, and she gave him 3 things to read, and one of them was Michelle Alexander's book, and told Carol Marie, Ron Emanuel, and the entire viewing audience that this is a must-read book, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. So please join me in welcoming Michelle Alexander.
Thank you so much for inviting me here to Roosevelt University, this wonderful university committed to using education for social justice and for social justice advocacy. I'm just thrilled to be invited to be here and participate in this extraordinary lecture series and part of this event. It's truly an honor to be here. So I'd like to dedicate my talk today to the memory of Reverend Martin Luther King, Jr. I find it difficult to overstate the contribution Dr. King has made to my own understanding of the core spiritual truths that underlie all striving for racial justice. His life's work and his vision for justice is unapologetic radicalism in the face of glaring injustice offer for me a model of what truly inspired social justice advocacy and activism can look like. But I'm not going to spend my time here today merely singing his praises or telling you all the ways in which we are so much better off, supposedly, than in the year of his passing. No, if there's one principle that Dr. King demonstrated as steadfastly as his commitment to nonviolence, it was his commitment to telling the truth, the whole truth, about matters of race. As he put it quite bluntly just months before his death, he said, quote, "I do not see how we will ever solve the turbulent problem of race confronting our nation until there is an honest confrontation with it and a willing search for the truth and a willingness to admit the truth when we discover it." So in Dr. King's honor today, I'm going to do my best to tell the truth about the state of race in America today. It's a truth that most Americans will deny, just as they denied the truth about slavery and Jim Crow in their day. But the truth is this: we as a nation have taken a wrong turn, a tragic detour in the stride toward freedom. We betrayed Dr. King's dream. A vast new system of racial and social control has emerged from the ashes of slavery in Jim Crow. It is a system that shuttles our children from their decrepit, underfunded school to brand new high-tech prisons. This system of mass incarceration locks poor people, overwhelmingly poor people of color, into a permanent second-class status nearly as effectively as earlier systems of racial and social control. It is, in my view, the moral equivalent of Jim Crow. Now, there was a time, a long time, when I thought this kind of talk was counterproductive. For a long time, I resisted comparisons between mass incarceration and slavery, or mass incarceration and Jim Crow, believing those kinds of analogies were exaggerations, distortion, hyperbole, more likely to do harm than good to efforts to reform the criminal justice system and achieve greater racial equality in the United States. But what a difference a decade makes. Because after years of working as a civil rights lawyer on issues of racial profiling, police brutality, drug law enforcement in poor communities of color, and attempting to assist people released from prison, quote unquote, re-enter into a society that never seemed to have much use for them in the first place, I had a series of experiences that began what I call my awakening. I began to awaken to a racial reality that is so obvious to me now that what seems odd in retrospect is that I have been blind to it for so long. I state my basic thesis in the introduction of the book where I write, what has changed since the collapse of Jim Crow has less to do with the basic structure of our society than the language we use to justify it. In the era of colorblindness, it's no longer socially permissible to use race explicitly as a justification